vulnerability is being brave.
Yeah.
And it's okay that I've gone back and forth because it is very hard to leave these situations. These individuals, whether they're men or women who are toxic or narcissists, they're very powerful, they're very dominating. So we could be a very strong person, but at the same time, still be caught up in the web of dominance and power because
Absolutely.
we're still connected to this version of this person, this initial version of this person.
Alrighty, welcome on, ladies and gentlemen. I am super excited to have this beautiful guest on today because Babita is a wealth of knowledge in psychotherapy. You're also a divorce coach and a former lawyer. So welcome on. How are you doing today?
Oh, thank you so much, Kate. I'm doing great. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more and give a little bit more of a background of who you are and where your expertise lie?
Sure, thank you. So, as you said, as former lawyer, formerly in corporate America, and transitioned many years ago into a career with psychotherapy and mental health consulting, specializing in relationships. And so, some of my niche areas are narcissism, for example, also specializing in the aspect of divorce and the relationship to oneself, personal, as well as in the workplace. Because if we optimize our relationship to self, right, we can actually lead more fulfilling, healthier lives.
Yes, absolutely. And today we're going to go all into the subject of narcissism. And also, if you're in an affair dynamic right now, you might be thinking, how on earth did I get myself into this? This violates my values, my rules, and my standards for life. So, at what point did I accept that this is okay, or how did I fall into this relationship? And so we're going to be talking a lot on narcissism and how essentially someone that could be cheating on their partner capture you into a relationship. And we're going to be talking both on the other woman who is single or the other man who is single, and also someone that is married. So two people that are married getting into an affair. And the first question I want to ask you, Babita, is how does a narcissist change in regards to capturing you into an affair dynamic, as opposed to, like, this is going to be different to a narcissist that is single. So how does a narcissist that is married capture you into this kind of dynamic?
Such a great question, and it's not talked about enough. A couple of things. I'll first describe, a narcissist. Narcissists tend to be very grandiose. They're very self-focused. They tend to be very controlling, very emotionally manipulative, and they need to be idealized, right? They need to be fulfilled. So, number one, if a narcissist is married, they always are looking for supply. And if their partner isn't idealizing them, they will search for it. Now, what happens, Kate, is this: and they search for their narcissistic supply, they tend to capture those individuals that they can sense are either highly sensitive empaths, perhaps caregivers, individuals that sort of have a lot of generosity to them, and ones that maybe, and they could be very strong individuals, men or women, but they might be seeking, because they might be helpers, or they might be seeking to sort of connect with someone. They may be really looking for that deeper companionship. And what happens is that sort of radar that a narcissist has as they're seeking supply, they're married, but they need more because they want to be idealized. They want to make sure that they're always sort of there's a focus that's always on them, and they need that. They thrive on that. And so what happens is they have a radar for those individuals. They know what that hook is. And so they then draw that person in. Let's say the narcissist is working with that person. They might initially draw that person in by love bombing them, maybe elevating their work, telling them what an amazing worker they are. They might draw them in by sort of being a truly good listener or acting like they have a lot of empathy, but narcissists, they do not have empathy. This is for their own self-fulfillment. They may make you feel like you're like an amazing man or woman on top of the world. And what happens is the single male or female, or let's say that other person is also married, starts to get really enthralled by this person and starts to get very and captured by the love bombing and by the way they're showing up. And something really important about this, Kate, is the other aspect is not only does that happen, but if this narcissist is describing how unhappily married they are, and they're saying, "Oh, I'm so unhappy," and they are projecting themselves as victim. On the
Yeah.
other side of the coin, right? If you are an empath, if you are a caring person, it can be very easy to get drawn into that and think, "Wow, I'm going to save this person.
Yeah.
I'm going to go into this relationship with this person. Poor them. Oh my God, it is so awful. They're so stuck in this." And so you get drawn into this space.
Mm, absolutely. And I think a lot of people would be able to relate to this. So, because it's something that shows up all the time. So, for the people that do get captured into this relationship, how do we've kind of fallen into it and it's escalated really quickly. How do we start to become aware of these patterns? What should we look out for? And so that we can begin to slow this down and break some of these ties that are so bonding.
It's great that you framed in that way because we have this first part of it, almost like the what I call the affair fog or
Yeah.
honeymoon stage, where you see the best parts, so to speak, of a narcissist before their masks come down.
Yeah.
And look, we're not going to look out for it at first because you're not going to notice it. What
Yeah.
happens is when that stage, when what we call that love bombing and that, excessive support, and you think this person is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and just because they're married, it's okay because they're suffering. What starts to happen is the narcissist masks go down, and here's what you should look out for. You'll start to see it's called the devaluing phase. You'll start to notice that this person is slowly starting to criticize you and maybe blame you for things. So you're not feeling that great. Like you might have been confident, but you're noticing you're not feeling as confident.
Mm.
Um, you're noticing that things come up and there's what's called gaslighting, that you might be expressing something and they're dismissing your feelings. They might say, that didn't happen. It could be
Mm.
something as small as they're consistently late. And you're like, oh, hey, I really hate, to like be kept waiting. And they will say, what are you talking about? We were supposed to meet at this time. That's you. Nope, not true. Even as something as small as that. And that repeats, or bigger gaslighting things like you're expressing how you feel. And they're like, why do you feel like that? That's ridiculous that you feel that way.
Yeah.
And start to notice that. You will also start to notice isolation, meaning they will start to say, I don't want to hang out with your friends, or they'll start to comment on the people you spend time with. And so you'll start to realize that the only person you're really seeing now is them. And they'll start to hover around you to sort of create this separation between yourself and the people who love and care about you. So your normal rhythms are now shifting.
Isolation.
Also, right? Yeah. Start to notice a bit of control where maybe before that wasn't the case, but they're starting to dictate the who, what, why, when, how.
Yeah.
And you're going to start to notice that. I would say those are the signs. Or if you are whoever's listening, notice it now because it's there and it's slowly unpeeling.
Yeah. Yeah. This is fantastic. And when people in these affair dynamics start to become aware of these patterns, Babita, one of the things that happens is it hurts, that awareness. And they we start to make it mean like, does that mean they never really loved me? And was it all a show? And they feel so hurt by the fact that, was he literally just doing this to me, and there was nothing about me that he liked, or she. And so I want to ask you, when we start to become aware of these patterns, how can we interpret that, and what can we make it mean? Because it can be very painful to suddenly start to see it as a narcissist, as narcissistic behaviors, and we often make it mean, okay, they never cared about me.
Very true. So the first thing I really want to say is the reason why that also ends up being very hard to disengage is in relationships such as these, in toxic relationships, relationships with the narcissist, we form what's called the trauma bond, which you probably heard about. And the
Yeah.
trauma bond is we get used to the emotionally manipulative, abusive behavior, and we start to, like, almost like Pavlov's dog, we start to get conditioned, and then we're drawn to it. We don't even, because we're so connected to this person, we also cannot believe that they're not the person that you met early on. And so the trauma bond is we're always searching for that love, and we're
Yeah.
seeking it, which is what makes it so difficult and so deeply painful. So I really understand that. Um, the challenge is, and this is what we want to make the distinction between a toxic affair partner, a narcissist, versus when someone's having an affair with a non-narcissist. Because with a narcissist, I have to say, it is an understandable questioning of ever really being loved, because narcissists are all about narcissists. Whereas if they're having an affair with someone who's not a narcissist, there's a different kind of work where you can say, look, it didn't work out, but there was love. Let's look at how
Yeah.
you love each other,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And remember those moments. The work with the affair partner being a narcissist is narcissists tend to only love themselves.
Mm.
So it's a harder cycle to break. And you have to remember, wait, I love me first. I love me first. And this was growth for me, as painful as it was. I
Mm.
learned things about myself in this. We have to rebuild our self-esteem and realize that I I ended up getting engaged with this very toxic person because the mask was about being loved, but really they just loved themselves, and that's not good for me. And I deserve to truly be loved in a healthy way. So there
Yeah.
is a distinction, and that's why I think this is so difficult, because the common thing around a narcissist, as an affair partner or otherwise, is many people do feel like, wow, was this all like
Mm.
a, a, an unreal, right? Was this all pretend?
Yeah.
Did he really care?
Yeah.
But I think what it is you can try and reconcile it by saying that this was an experience. I had an experience with this person, as painful as it was. I can say that maybe I could cherish some of the better memories, but I know I need to get out of it because it's toxic.
Exactly. And that's fantastic. So it's, on one hand, we can think that we can get to a place where we're like, okay, I have just had a shift in my whole awareness around what this was, and the way that that person, the affair partner, is showing up. And that can be painful, and we can shift our perspective of what we're making it mean to something that's a bit more empowering. We can shift it, but we can still be so trauma bonded to the experience. And so when say we are going through change of an affair dynamic, and we are breaking away and we are ending it, and the affair partner's love was so, like, we experienced love bombing at the start, it was so heightened, and then it started to withdraw, and they started to withdraw. How can we detach from so if we've broken off the affair, how can we detach from the trauma bond that still remains alive in us?
Yeah. And it's a journey, but here's a few things that I think are so important, because you're right. Yes, there's still on the other side of it a bond with this person. and a real
Mm.
heartbreak about what you've uncovered about who they are. And what happens is before it ends, and this is just an important detail, there's a lot of back and forth, right, with the narcissist affair partner, because that person's not going to want to let you go.
Yeah.
And they will hover and bring you back in and then devalue you and then hover and bring you back in. And you just keep going through the cycle. So you keep having this hope. And you're like, oh my God, wait a second. I knew it. I knew that he could be a loving, kind person. And then you realize, wait a second, he's emotionally manipulative. He's gaslighting me, or she is. They're toxic. So I would say this, the first step is, this is where support is so important. It truly is. Surround yourself with the people who can reinforce this for you, whether it's a professional who specializes in it, friends and family that understand and can support you, not say, wow, why did you do that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
could you
Not
do that?
reshame.
Right? Not shame you, because there is shame, but reinforce it and be there to support you. The second one is, again, with that community, is kind of reminding you of the version of the man or the woman that you were prior to this relationship, and say, I was this person prior to going into this affair, and I'm still this person. And do the work to think about who that was, that version,
Mm.
and remember that person, and say, what were the things, what are my qualities? What were the things that brought me that resilience and that empowerment and that confidence? The third part is truly no contact. This is so critical,
Mm.
because trauma bond will continue to be there and even grow if you keep going back and forth with this person. So you might think, hey, I can handle this. It's okay that we're still friends on social media. It's okay that I still am friends with their friend, or etc., things like that. It's okay if on occasion we have an email. I would say, and data shows, that in this diagnosis, no contact. Because to break a trauma bond, you cannot really have this person around. They know your hook and they'll go for it. And then I would say, last but not least, show yourself compassion and know this: you're going to be processing, you're going to be talking about it, you're going to want to go back to this person and keep saying to yourself, this is a trauma bond. Like, go back to educating yourself. Remember why this exists. Is it really about him or her? Or is it about this bond because of who I think this person was, but they're not really? And write it down and talk about it and remember why it is you're not supposed to be in this relationship.
Yes, I love that. And that's so helpful because we need all the help that we can get. And so if we can pre-frame it and prepare ourselves for that desire to go back, then we can essentially set us up for more success when we are feeling the need to go back into the relationship.
Very true, because we repeat what we don't repair.
Mm.
So if we don't really do the work and get the support and really dive in to look at this, even look at, what could I have done differently? What was it about this person that I was drawn to? Maybe there was something empty going on in my life. And not to blame yourself, but to understand it better, we can then break certain cycles or that pattern, and we can start to also work on breaking that trauma bond. So I would say, be compassionate and be in the journey around it, and realize that it is going to lead you eventually to greener pastures.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. I want to quickly go into the question around what's the difference between um, the way a narcissist that's married may attract in a woman who is also married versus a narcissist that is married who will attract in a single woman. Is the way that he approaches this woman different?
It can be different. A narcissist who's married, and on the other side of it, the other person is married, will prey upon different things. they will be tremendous listeners in a way that the person on the other side doesn't get from their spouse.
Mm.
They'll hone in on that because they're very aware that that is usually what tends to happen. We don't feel heard. We don't really feel seen. We don't feel like there's listening. We don't feel understood. Some things that come up when we're unhappily married, um, or maybe struggling in our marriage. And so a narcissist picks up on that and they will become that. They will sort of morph into being the best, most empathic listener you've ever experienced. The second part is they will also operate in a way that they will treat the person with sort of a nomenclature around twin flames or soulmates,
Yeah.
or you are my forever person, because they're understanding that clearly this person who's married, something is going on that's not quite fitting in their marriage for them, even if they don't realize it, for maybe them to be open to this, right? There's
Yeah.
something. And
Yeah.
so they know that. And the way they're going to operate is they're going to end up fulfilling the spaces that the other person can't. And so they will draw upon that. And
Mm.
they will end up doing all the things that this person might want. Everything from like, oh, hey, you love rock. I love rock climbing. Um, you wanted to do this and you can't do that in your marriage. I'll do this. I'll be willing to do this. So they draw those things in, which is very different. I think if someone is single,
Yeah.
yes, a narcissist might do that, but they're not trying to fulfill the shoes that someone is maybe seeking because they're with a partner in their marriage and they may not be getting their needs met.
Yeah.
So they will focus on meeting your needs.
Yeah.
Whereas when someone is single, they're going to maybe do a lot of love bombing. They're going to focus on gift giving, the most incredible dates. They're going to lavish you with so many things. I'm not saying they don't do that if two people are married, but their approach will be this person is single, this person is not with someone, so they might be more open in that way. They can focus on those other things
Yeah.
versus focusing on those unmet needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And I appreciate the dynamic shift in that. And also for the person that they may be preying upon that is single, um, really tapping into something that can really capture them in is where their needs not being met in their own relationship, as you spoke about. Um,
Yes, like on the flip side, if they're married and the person is single, they'll talk about their unmet needs, and then they will kind of curate a place where the single person ends up feeling really good because they're going to meet all the needs of this
yeah,
narcissist. And
yeah,
who doesn't feel good about that? Right? Like when you feel like you're being told how great you are and how unhappy they are, and like everything that you do is so wonderful, and you're the one person that understands them. That is a very human core, right? Heart piece that people feel good about.
absolutely, absolutely. Okay, I want to finish it off on one other question, potentially two, but we'll go from there. Um, that is, so a lot of affairs happen in the workplace, or in close communities. So whether it be in your your children's school circle, or your exercise community, whatever it is, but a lot of them happen in the workplace. And one of the questions I want to ask you is if you're someone that's in an affair and ending the affair dynamic, going no contact, how do we have to leave our job? Can we go no contact but still remain their employee, or in close contact on a workplace?
So, a couple of things. I would say that it does depend on the situation, but it is very difficult. Let's say you're having an affair with your boss or someone in a leadership position.
Yeah.
You have to be careful with a narcissist as the affair partner because they can be very punishing and very cruel. And there have been examples of that where the person has really been suffered in the
Mm.
workplace after they try and go no contact, or if they can't, they do boundaries, and they
Yeah.
really stay in their boundaries and then they try and revert to be more professional, they'll start to find that the narcissist, because it's a narcissistic injury, that's where that phrase comes from, and
Yeah.
they will be angry. And then they might find a way to get you out of your job or drive you out of it. So you do want to be careful about it. Maybe I would recommend set boundaries, switch to another department, kind of figure out what there might be other opportunities if you like the company that you work for, but really try not to be in a space where you have a lot of contact or that person's in your department or you report into them, because it will be difficult. And in the workplace, we want to be more empowered, confident people. We need to do our jobs, right? And narcissists
Absolutely.
likes to beat someone up on their self-esteem.
Yeah.
So they will find ways to do that. And if you're trying to heal, you are going to be vulnerable around this person. So I would say switch out the department you're in if you can't leave your job, or find another space, maybe work on other projects.
Mm.
When it's like, let's say, school district, school environment, those kinds of things, think about this. Because again, maybe you're not going to pull your kids out of school. Let's say you're a parent. I'd say just
Yeah.
try and set boundaries. Like maybe if you're on the board with that person, don't be.
Yeah.
If certain things that you don't need to attend, don't. Like give yourself enough distance between this person if this is like a school parent situation, and
Yeah.
support yourself with the community and the friends that also surround yourself, so you have a bit of that sort of I would say an armor, and you've got
Yeah.
people, right? You've
Uh-huh.
got your people of your village.
Yeah.
That's so important. And then keep setting boundaries. And that way, if you can't do no contact, because you're absolutely right, Kate. Sometimes it's not that easy because the person, we tend to meet those people in our life. That's how it
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They're often very closely connected, which is why it evolves in that way. Okay, I just want to quickly look over my notes and make sure that we got
Sure.
everything together. Um,
There's so much here, right, to talk about.
so much. And it's such an interesting topic to cover, and I appreciate you hopping on. Hold on a second. I just want to quickly ask one more question, and that is when we do want to end an affair relationship and the person cheating, we fear that they're going to get quite toxic and emotionally or physically abusive, and we want to end it. I definitely have had quite a number of ladies reach out saying, like, I am ready to end it, but I'm so scared. It feels too difficult. Um, how can we navigate this?
Yeah, I mean, that's so hard. There's always people don't leave because of all the fear. And they actually say when it comes to toxic, abusive relationships, narcissistic, etc., that sometimes it takes 5 to 7 times that the person goes back and forth, right? And
Yeah.
leaving.
Yeah.
I would say this. Um, a couple of messages, because sometimes there's fear and then the fear is attached with shame, that we're afraid to even say that this is happening. And then we have shame to reach out for help. So the first thing I would say is this fear is understandable. And if you are afraid about their reactions, please do reach out for help, because there are people out there who can help to support it. And if it's like a domestic violence situation, do call the domestic violence hotline and go to your local organizations to help you get out
Yeah.
and go to a safe space. When it comes to the fear generally, I would say this: have your village around you that you trust, and slowly, strategically extricate yourself.
Mm.
You may not be able to just say, hey, I'm leaving, and leave. You may need to do this one step at a time. Think about if you're living with the person, or maybe you're not living with the person, or they come over all the time because it's a fair
Yeah.
situation. Think about this. What is it that maybe ties me to this person, and how do I start to cut those slowly but surely? Am I afraid because I'm afraid that they are going to keep coming back? So what do I need to do around that space, and take it one step at a time? Do I need to get help? Do I need to not say to them, hey, I'm leaving? Do I start to say to them, look, it's clear we're not working out?
Yeah.
Or do I gather whatever I need if I'm over there a lot, or whatever you're doing, and do it that way, then go no contact? I
Yeah.
think fear is the place that I say one small step at a time. When it's an affair, it's tricky, but it can be done if you again go back into that place to say, um, where can I get my strength from?
Mm.
And remember this, that eventually that fear is going to dissipate and you're going to face those fears and say, what am I afraid of? If I'm afraid of these things, then what do I need to do to help myself? And I think it really does come down to um, getting the support and getting the village to be with you.
Yeah.
And maybe you need someone to be more of your spokesperson. Maybe you need someone who's actually going to say to that person, he or she's not coming back.
Yeah.
And you might need that in your life. You may not be able to just do it yourself.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Set that boundary there, and it can be so helpful. All righty. Thank you.
Encouraging yourself, I would say, when there is support out there, know that it may take some time.
Mm.
And think of it this way, is this a fear where I know legitimately, for example, when it's something where it's domestic violence, which is a very, I mean, that is, an emotional violence too.
Yeah.
Um, you have to say to yourself, this is a legitimate fear, but if I continue to stay, I'm going to continue to be imprisoned by this person and I'm not alone. Know that you're not alone is very important. I'm not alone. So I need to just find the courage and recognize that I'm loved and I will be supported and I will surround myself
Yeah.
by people.
Yeah. Beautiful. I with that, with what you just ended on that there, a lot of women feel such shame in going back those 5 to 7 times and feel that there must be something so wrong with them, and that they have no self-esteem or self-worth when originally they thought they were someone that had high self-esteem and self-worth, and they can't figure out why such, say, a strong woman can't navigate this and why they just can't take action on this. Can you help us with how can we come to a place in ourselves where we're okay with the way that it has unfolded as the journey that it is, without shaming or judging ourselves, or not being able to just end it simply and be able to say, this isn't for me?
I think it's so important to first remember the story, like go down and think about what was the story and realize that and do that with compassion, realize, wait, there was a story. I went in, I was looking for love,
Yeah.
I was looking for companionship. I wanted to either fill a hole in my life. I
Yeah.
met this person, and this person had all of these colors and all of these things that who I thought that they were.
Mm.
And I show myself forgiveness for that because it's easy when we want to be loved, and it's a very human thing to want connection and love, to get connected to somebody we don't know. And slowly, right, the abuse starts or the toxic behavior starts. But as human beings, we're very connected to that real initial place of who
Yeah.
we thought that person was. And the reason why this is so important, and I'm describing this, is because ultimately, if we write that story or share that story and have that witnessed with the right support, we ultimately can reconcile for ourselves. This is why I go back and forth. This is why it's so difficult,
Mm.
because I naturally have formed a bond with this person. And I always hoped that it would go back to what I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And until we realize and show compassion and reconcile that this story is an understandable, normal human story,
Mm.
right? When we can do that very clearly, the next chapter of that story is to say, all right, when I can do that, maybe I can now lean into the woman that I am and think about that resilience and say, this was stressful, but lean into the fact that I can take one brave step at a time. And this vulnerability is being brave.
Yeah.
And it's okay that I've gone back and forth because it is very hard to leave these situations. These individuals, whether they're men or women who are toxic or narcissists, they're very powerful, they're very dominating. So we could be a very strong person, but at the same time, still be caught up in the web of dominance and power because
Absolutely.
we're still connected to this version of this person, this initial version of this person. So I think if you can map that out, you can reconcile that within yourself. And that can start to help us with the shame that we feel. And of course, there's so much work around shame. I'm just giving a little snapshot of some of the
Yeah.
things a person can start to do and think about.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, just to wrap it up today, where can we reach out to you? Can we find more about your work, your resources, and what you offer?
Absolutely. So they can go onto my websites, Opening the Door Psychotherapy or Babita Spinelli Group. I
Yeah.
have a lot of information on there, as well as how to find me. And I'm also on, social media on LinkedIn and Instagram. I put out a lot of resources in this space, as well as, Facebook. And, at Babita Spinelli, or if they Google me, they'll see it there. I also have a blog which I post a lot of things around narcissism and toxic relationships. And I actually have a course which can be helpful as a supplement to the work, which is rebuilding your life after divorce or a breakup. And
Mm,
even though it's not specifically around affairs, there's a lot of tools and a lot of tools that coaches and therapists are also using from the course. There are about 36, which is on building your self-esteem and self-worth, and healing, and going through this process around, shame and forgiveness and compassion. So that
mm.
might be something that can be helpful, as well.
Absolutely. Even though it's, let's say, in a fair dynamic, these tools work
They
so well.
absolutely do, because they're so applicable around it. And
100%.
I know, Kate, you and I didn't talk about this, and I know I'm bringing this up at the end, but I do want to say, because I think it'll be helpful to our listeners, there's a lot of grief when there is a recognition that you're with someone who's toxic.
There is. It's
Oh,
so
right?
much.
So much grief around that and around the affair and your hopes and dreams and what you thought it would be.
Yeah.
So that's when I also say, like, remember that it is grief. And so be kind to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. The story that was painted has shifted. So there is a big loss there.
Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful. Do you have anything that you want to quickly leave with before we wrap it up?
I'd like to say that there is hope, that
Yeah.
people have survived narcissist and toxic relationships, and they are thriving, and they have either reached in and met their, soul partner, their companion, or they've decided that they've rebuilt their life and they have a great relationship to themselves and they feel great about it, and that it is all a learning journey. So don't be so hard on yourself. You can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I really appreciate you being on this call today.
Thank you, Kate.